them, basically. I mean, really hurt them badly. Now, the deep, dark secret of that is AARP, remember them? They came out fully supporting this bill. I'm sure they're doing it because they love seniors and they're really supporting seniors. I wish that was the case. I was a member. Was. The fact of the matter is that Medicare, and I was going to bring them tonight, those of you who are seniors, you know, you got it, right? How many letters did you get promoting United Healthcare plan that is endorsed by AARP? Hundreds of millions of dollars to their budget come through that. You think AARP doesn't benefit when the competition is gutted? That's exactly, I think, what's happening, and that's one of the major reasons why there is. And then I think, finally here, there's been some hint about payment reform, and I think this is my opinion, I'm not speaking for Mayo, but I think partly it's what intrigued Mayo to stay at the table on these debates is this whole business about pay for value. Well, the House bill had, if you can believe this, you're going to buy somebody's vote by having a study that takes 16 months to come back with a conclusion, and that is really good news. Well, I mean, I really think, no matter, the Senate is a little bit stronger than that, but I'm afraid, frankly, that this payment reform is really shallow. Do you really think that the doctors and the political forces on the coast and in Florida and so forth are going to give in and take less so that you can be fair now to Minnesota? I actually asked Senator Klobuchar that very question, and she kind of said, uh-oh. I mean, the look in her eye said, I understand. Because I said, how are you going to get this passed? I mean, I applaud you for having a bill that tries to do this regional fairness, but I don't know how you get it passed, and I think she realizes it's a good political ploy, but I don't see how in the world you're going to get it passed. Next. Okay, now let's go through the whole motion. And what this says is, if you were sick, you wouldn't take just any old prescription. You want the darn right prescription. And what I am contending is that what we see is the wrong prescription. Let's start with the first one. Okay, first of all, we're spending a lot of money that we don't have. It's so hard to use numbers because, frankly, there's so much spin in the numbers. For example, $1 trillion in the first decade, except what somebody forgot to tell you is you got 10 years of revenue, because that'll kick in right away, but the programs, the actual spending, don't kick in for another 3 years or so. So, in fact, what you've got really is 10 years of revenue, 6 years of expense. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that that's not a true. I mean, you'd have to have a steady state time. And that's why people say when it really gets to be steady state, you're probably talking about $2.5 trillion of expenditures. And that right off the bat is not going to balance. The reason it balances, I gave you one of the other, is that $250 billion in that separate bill. But another part of it is just the bookkeeping. And it's really kind of shady bookkeeping. I mentioned before about Medicare. There's a couple of elements. One of them is the gutting of the Medicare Advantage programs. The other is we are finally in Medicare going to get rid of fraud and abuse. Finally we're going to do that. How long has Medicare been around? Now, I don't mean that there's not fraud and abuse. I think there is. I don't deny that at all. But I don't really believe in the will. Now, let's play that out a little bit further. And I realize this is hypothesis, but if you can't do it, and you booked it in your bill, and you booked it in your budget, and you can't return it there, where's it going to come from? And I think that the medical community ought to recognize it's going to come from rates. That's the only thing you're going to have left, is you're going to have to adjust the rates instead in order to be able to realize that. And part of the reason, by the way, that the Congressional Budget Office scored it, even with all these funny things in it, but still scored it, that it would balance, was because they believed, I mean, they had to just take the number on the Medicare savings, because that's just an absolute number. I mean, the Democrats promised that we will save I forgot what it is. The total is about $500 million. The savings, I think, is $200 or $300 billion, that we will save, and you just have to plug that in. And I can't blame the CBO. That's what they do. But I think there is a believability kinds of questions. And then the final point that I would make, because I've said the other ones, is that if you look at Medicare originally, if you look at Tennessee Care, if you look at Massachusetts, if you look at Hawaii and their Cover All Kids, you look on any one of the programs any place, they typically, actual expenses are 2 to 3 times what they project. because the magnet just attracts. I mean, there's some other funny things in the budget, for example, that speak to, we're assuming that people are dumb enough, if you get fined once, you're going to continue to get fined. So they can count on the revenue from these fines. Well, I mean, people aren't quite that dumb, I don't think. Okay, next slide. We've emphasized this, and Dr. Wright did. I just want to reemphasize it again, that everybody says that the number one problem is healthcare cost and healthcare cost inflation. And if there was even a tidbit of hope in the bills that are before Congress in reducing costs, I'd be at least a little bit happy, but I don't see it. Every objective analysis that's been done says that the average payer, the one you and I, whether it's through our business or through individuals, that we will pay more. And why? Well, if you're going to expand entitlement programs, and you typically underpay the entitlement programs, how do you make up? You transfer the expense, you shift the cost to the average payer, the average insurance. You also, if you do things, and you can argue all day about the insurance companies. I think, by the way, in the case of pre-existing conditions, there's a better solution than requiring the insurance companies. Because the problem is, when you put the no pre-existing conditions clause requirement on insurance, and you put the no lifetime limits, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that if you or I were selling an insurance product, that's more cost. I mean, it may be the right thing to do. You can argue that all day. But the fact of the matter is that's more cost. That's going to inject more cost for the entire insurance industry. And the insurance industry, as mean as people sometimes think they are, if you really look at the margins, you look at the administrative costs, you find out it's not nearly as bad as they say. In Minnesota, for example, insurance companies are required to be nonprofit now. I'm not sure I believe it's 100% nonprofit, but it's still are. But the fact of the matter is, when you add these plus other kinds of requirements for insurance companies, they're going to have to recoup those costs, and that's going to mean higher insurance rates for the rest of us. And that's been borne out by several revealing studies recently. And then, in addition to those particular mandates, if you look through the bill, I mean, everything from the employers who today, like in Minnesota, typically have a requirement to be their insurance policy to cover at least 50%, now would be up in the 70% range, depending upon where they are. I mean, you don't think that adds cost to the job producers in our world? Absolutely does. So there's a whole host of other kind of details. The benefits, the minimum benefit sets will be set by a bureaucracy. As those minimum benefit sets go up in requirements, it means it costs us more, and it may not fit for an awful lot of people. Okay, next slide. I add the seniors beware, and it's so easy to gloss over because you hear AARP supports it, so seniors must love it. The fact of the matter is, of course, I think alert seniors are way ahead of the curve. And why are they? Well, they see that cuts to Medicare, huge cuts overall. They see the fraud and abuse, and they don't have, just as I said, really don't have trust and confidence that you can deliver on that. You can, the healthcare limits. This is the one, I think Sarah Palin got in a little trouble, and I think it's probably fair to say that there's no words exactly in the bills that say death panels. However, it really does, you don't have to extrapolate very far when you really kind of look at the intent and the directions and so forth to be thinking that there are healthcare decisions that are going to be affected by things like what is your age, what is your probability. Those things I think are pretty scary. I'm not going to pretend to you, though, that you could read through the 2,000 pages and find those precise words, but I think you see the implications. And then finally, and I really believe this, we happen to be grandparents. We got 4 grandkids. Most seniors don't want to leave a horrendous debt to their grandkids, and I think that's another reason why seniors are concerned. Okay, next. It's a big hit on job producers. At a time when in our society probably, when the number one real issue right now is about jobs, what are we doing? We're dealing with more healthcare costs for employers. I just gave that example about where you've got to have a higher percentage. You've got mandates on